Could Bohannon have gotten Man in the Mirror and I could have gotten Bad? Just kidding, Zach. Well, thank you for having us. It's exciting to be here. What fabulous topics we've had so far today, right? We had a panel that talked about leadership. We had a panel that talked about making an impact. We had a panel that talked about what it's going to take to get to 1 billion members. And then this most recent panel that we had just before us talked about do or die, right? One thread that I think all of those panels had in common, and Sue, the brilliance just comes through now, is the fact that each of those panels, there were comments that were made on those panels that really were driven by courage, right? Courage is defined as the ability to do something that frightens you. And I think to dig into courage itself, the concept of courage, we have to understand what it is that frightens us and why. How do you work through then that fear and get to a point where you can then turn and achieve that? So I think, Brandy, you hit it spot on. In today's environment, it's so red or blue, black or white, yes or no, gay or straight, like everything, there's a line down the middle, right? And I think it takes courage to be on either side in all those cases. So I'm not going to sit here and ramble. We have a limited amount of time. I want to turn to the panel right out of the gate and say that divide that Brandy talked about is real here in America. I think we all see it every single day. What does courage look like for future leaders and for our credit union industry overall? Shelley, you want to go first?
Sure. I think in terms of credit union industry, so I was in the credit union world for 20 years before coming over to Balance, and now I'm in the financial coaching space. And one thing I think is important for credit unions all sizes is to look at our members holistically. I still say I'm always going to be a credit union person, always, even though, I think we need to look at our members holistically and see them for where they are. And sometimes it takes courage to craft a solution when you're working with a member one-on-one that maybe is not part of your menu of products and services. Maybe it's a solution that has nothing to do with a loan or a second chance checking account. Perhaps a person is food insecure. How are we going to know that, though, unless we are courageous enough to ask questions and really get to the heart of why they're coming to see us? Last year at Balance, we took about 56,000 calls from our credit union members across the country. And a lot of those people who call us are struggling financially. They already know how to stretch a dollar. They can stretch a dollar better than I ever could. They can find creative ways to save money better than many of us could. They don't need lectures. They don't need another loan to help them. They need a solution that may be outside the box. Maybe they need a referral to an agency, whatever. But looking at them holistically and not seeing them as just another loan to put on the books or another checking account. We're really about people helping people, but that becomes cliche if we're really not looking at where they are and what they need. So I think that does take some courage.
I love it. Great answer. Shirley, I'm going to skip you for a minute and go to Scott, just because I'm going to keep everybody on their toes.
Oh, thank you. So I think it's being willing to challenge the industry when it goes against. I'm the CEO of a small credit union. We're 38 million, one branch. I've been CEO 14 years. And there's a lot of us in the industry are pissed off at the direction that we're going. And we're not staying true to our credit union values and roots. And there's a lot of us small ones like me that don't want to leave that path. And we know that path is not good for us. So I think it's the courage to collaborate. True collaboration, not the hypocritical collaboration that our industry is full of.
Not co-opetition, but collaboration.
There's a lot of that in my area, and I'm sick of it. And the reality is I'm trying to get credit unions to join together and help each other. We do things like we put on conferences. We do help with strategic planning. We also help with vendor searches where we join together and just willing to kind of challenge the narrative that, oh, you're too small, you need to merge with me because I need to be $1 billion or $5 billion in assets. I'm sick of that. And so I think just getting us together that still believe that, I'm staying on my credit union path. Some of you might want to go and be big, and I don't want to join your bigness. I don't. That's death to me. I can't make it there, but I can make it if I collaborate with other credit unions. And it's interesting that the smaller ones, we get that. It's inherent in us, and it's easy for us to collaborate. Once you get bigger, one thing I've noticed is there's a lot of bankers that have come into credit unions just trying to get the talent, and they don't understand that. I say that because I was community bank for 7 years before I came into credit unions. So I understand the mentality, and they have no clue what collaboration really is. So it's a struggle for them to collaborate. My experience is they can talk about it really well, but when it comes to actually doing it, they'll say, "Oh yeah, we'd love to do that. We'll help you." And it's like here's your chance. Here you go. And I don't hear back.
So stop talking the talk
I'm
and walk
sick
the
of it.
walk.
I am done with it.
Right?
I really
love
am.
it. I love it. I love the passion. Shirley, how about you?
Well, I'm going to play a little bit off of that. If you've seen, I have these little, it says no credit union left behind. I've been in the credit union space for 33 years, so I feel like I've hit my pinnacle here being on stage with you, Barb.
Thank
But
you.
I think, something that we're seeing as a renouncing theme here is the fact that all credit unions are important, but when we look especially in the communities, when we look in our rural communities, we look in our underserved communities, we look in our inner cities, we're finding trends where credit unions are closing, they're getting smaller, and we see larger banks, we see larger credit unions that are coming in and taking over those branches. Some are doing good, some aren't. And where I think it's really important here is that every credit union member, every community has a voice. And I unfortunately live in a community in Tennessee where this is very prevalent. We had a small credit union. It was merged in from a large out-of-state credit union. If you were to try to go to that credit union today, they send you to their 24/7
Ouch.
line to that credit union. And in that place, we have one national bank and 4 community banks. And every time we have a small restaurant or a small mom and pop business closing, guess what's coming in?
Yeah.
Payday lenders, buy here, pay
Yeah.
here, anything that is anything to help credit union
Almost
members.
predatory.
Yes. And so, we have to start looking and being real with ourselves. We have to understand that if we do not ensure that these credit unions survive, the small ones, we're not going to have a credit union system. I mean, I think if you go and you talk to people that are in Washington, D.C., I mean, this is just my take on it. It's not my employer's, but it's my opinion. That if we're not careful, we're going to see a dividing line. We're going to see a portion of our credit union system taxed because they're acting like banks.
Yep.
If we're looking at credit unions, the reason that we had the opportunities that we do is to have those community fields of membership. A community is not the U.S. A community is who you're serving in your community so you can know who you're talking to, they know who's going to help them, and they know who's going to take them to the next step in their life. And so I would strongly encourage us to think about that when we're thinking about looking at mergers, when we're thinking about closing down a branch or a whole series of credit unions that think about this. Without those small credit unions, which right now we've got, about 3,000 that are under 100 million? We don't have them anymore. We're literally turning into a banking system. So we have to pay attention to this. And just one more thing I want to add to this is the fact that when we're talking about how we want to increase membership, we have to also embrace and understand that DEI is not going away. So for those credit unions that are getting rid of their DEI departments, their DEI officers, you're going to be one of those that are not in existence because DEI also includes belonging and acceptance. This isn't just about race, this isn't just about ethnicity, this is about disabilities, this is about LGBTQ, this is about prisoner reentry, this is about domestic violence victims. We are people helping people, and let's make sure that it's not just the people that we want to help. Let's make sure that it's everybody.
The only thing, amen. The only thing that I would add to that, Shirley, that I would emphasize is, I think as an industry, we've gotten really good at the D and the E. And without the I, it doesn't matter because, right, we've gotten really good at the D and E, but without the I, it really doesn't matter. those efforts don't matter. So it's all about the inclusion. Scott, you had a comment.
Well, just as far as the small credit unions, if the industry doesn't figure out a better way to do it, we are doing it ourselves. And we recognize that the reality is we can do it better than anybody else. Because what's happened is the vendors that serve us, to the point earlier, they're going to where the big credit unions are because they've grown so fast in assets. That's where the money is. And so we get left behind with options that are shitty.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
they are, pardon my
Exactly.
language.
No, you're
But
in the right place.
But they really
You're
are,
good.
though. And so we're kind of fighting back by saying there's going to be 3 to 5 credit unions, and we're going to do this search together. We're going to do due diligence together as a way, because we've done that. And we've kind of done that with loan participations. A lot of us are doing that in pockets. Our goal is to unite all the smaller credit unions across the
Yes.
country and do our stuff together. I hope the industry will join us. But those that say, oh, you need to merge out, you guys aren't part of that group
Amen.
anymore. And
Yep.
as CEOs, we see that and we recognize that behavior really quickly now because there's a lot of predatory
Sure.
CEOs. And so
Sure.
we're just going to join with the
You
ones.
know which ones to
Oh,
avoid at a
absolutely.
cocktail
Yeah.
reception.
I just hope the industry can figure it out a little bit and kind of come along with us and recognize collaboration is our superpower.
Yep.
And we need to do that.
Yep.
And we're doing that. And you're welcome to join us.
So we have, I toss it up a little bit because Shirley's been on a panel with me. She kind of knows this
Yeah.
is what I do. We still have about 8 minutes left. So I'm going to do a jump ball. I've got some questions I put together that I'd love to hear your perspective on. Everybody doesn't have to answer every question. Just jump in if you feel moved to answer. So my first follow-up question about courage is, in our industry as a credit union, how do you muster the courage to surround yourself with people who don't look like you? So whether that's your leadership team, if you're a CEO, your board, how do you build a support leadership team that looks like the people you serve and not necessarily like you? And go.
I'll take that one. I think you have to be bold enough to go in there and tell your board to start with. We've got, I live in Tennessee, Southeast. We've got obviously huge pockets of majority minority communities, and yet we have credit unions in those systems that are run by all white male boards.
Yep.
They're run by white men.
Yep.
And I'm not bashing men, I'm just saying that it's so important to understand these communities. And if you don't look like the people that you're representing, how can you serve them? How can you understand their needs? So I think it has to be a bold decision for us to go in there and have those conversations, starting with the board, and say, how can we work together to bring in that next generation of those young professionals and those that are in our community that can help this credit union to survive and thrive and be healthy for the next generation.
So challenge your board.
Yes,
Challenge
amen.
your board. I love it.
And I think part of that too is if you want your credit union, your leadership and your board to look like the community, hire from the community.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
go local.
Exactly.
And think
I love it.
outside the box in terms of what those candidates can bring to your credit union.
Awesome answers.
I'm just going to add that if you're focused on your mission and you're really clear with you and your board, then that all doesn't matter. That's the most important thing, is you stay focused on your mission, and whoever wants to join you, join with them. It doesn't matter. Just, if you're there to help the underserved in your community, then that's whatever shape, color, size, doesn't matter.
Awesome. So we had a gentleman earlier today who asked the question about or made the statement that so many credit union professionals that he works with are so busy that they don't have time to tell their story. They don't have time to advocate. So as leaders, back to courageous leadership, right? As leaders, how can you find the courage, and I'm pushing now, but to say no, so a combination of to say no to new initiatives or new opportunities, or to say no, but maybe we could get to that next year. Or it's about prioritization, and it's about putting the needs of your people, members and your staff members at the forefront. So anybody want to take that? I know that's a very difficult and controversial topic because we all think we're super people and we can do everything, but I think that prioritization is super important. Shelley?
Agreed. I think also asking yourself, does this new initiative or priority, does it help tell our story?
There
If
you
it
go.
doesn't, And if storytelling needs to be our priority, which is one thing we're learning today, then move on to another initiative.
So ground yourself in your mission and your strategic imperatives is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. We can't be everything to everybody. I mean,
Amen.
we can do anything, but we can't do everything. And I think you made a good point in that when we stay aligned with our mission and our values and our core, that really should be driving. And, you know, when we do that, we are representing what our credit union and communities need, so.
Awesome.
I see a lot of that with my smaller credit union counterparts. Probably about half the credit unions, smaller ones, under 100 million, don't do anything. They're not at conferences. They're not anywhere. They're just, to your point, too busy in their own cocoon. And the reality is I found if we can just reach out and call them on the phone, go to visit them, that's the only way to reach a lot of these credit unions. And that's what we plan to do as credit unions, small credit union CEOs. We're going to go out there and reach out to them, not call them, not email them, actually go visit them.
Okay.
That's what they need. Because to the point
I love
earlier
it.
about do or die, we want to help them with those contracts they have, not the one that's coming due this year, the one that's 3 to 5 years out, to the point earlier, because they're not doing that process very well at all. So we want to kind of bring them into the fold, help them with looking at others that may be looking at something similar. And that's kind of how, because that's a huge time saver and a huge money saver for these smaller credit unions.
I'd also like to say, I think it takes courage. We tend to see the same people at the conferences. We tend to see the same people on panels. We tend to see the same speakers. And I would challenge our movement to let some of these smaller credit unions that have great ideas, have great potential, let them step up. Let them come and give their viewpoints and what they have to offer. Because one of the things that I think is so important, and it goes back to Louise Herring, it's not about money, it's not about accumulating capital, it's helping change people's lives. And we need to let every one of us in this movement do that.
I will tell you, there's a lot of small credit union CEOs that are seething right now, seeing what's going on in the industry. And if we don't figure it out, it's not going to be a good thing. But the reality is we're going to try and figure it out ourselves. We just want others to kind of join us and stop the indifference towards the smaller credit unions. Let's do something instead of just talking about it.
I have one more question I'd like to get to. I actually had a bunch more questions, but there's one more question I really want to make sure we have the ability to get through. So we've heard a lot today also about trying new things and not having the future be too rooted in the past. And I see in my experience a lot of credit unions who that's not the way we do things around here, or that's not, we don't want to take that step. We don't want to embrace, we don't want to be on the bleeding edge of technology. As a technologist here and a survivor of Fiserv, can I say that? This is a safe space. As a Fiserv leadership survivor, I think it's important as we're having a conversation about courage to talk about how credit unions can build the confidence to embrace technology and the path forward and not be afraid to fail fast, right? We all hear the concept of failing fast. I think that's important. So anybody want to share in the couple of minutes that we have left, any theories or feelings around how credit unions, small especially, right, should embrace trying new things and failing fast and making a difference in the lives of their members and determining how to move forward quickly?
I would just say, I don't know, I'll let someone else take that one.
Everybody wants to answer.
Well, so in the last year at Balance, we went through a very profound change. We went through the equivalent of a core conversion, which I've survived a couple of those.
I'm sorry.
No, hey, it's all good. But we switched our coaching software from a very old legacy software into Salesforce, which is not a counseling software. But my team loved it so much, and we were having such great use of it that we went to a vendor and asked them, hey, can you adapt Salesforce into a financial coaching software where we can centralize all the information about our clients, where my department has access, coaching has their access. And failure was basically not an option, because once we signed the agreement, it was all
One way or another,
yeah,
it was gonna
we were-
work.
Yeah, and so we were really into uncharted territory there, and we're still learning new things every day about the capabilities and what we can do and can't do with it. But really, it's, there is, what is it, do or do not, there is no try. So
Yoda,
we did.
my favorite Yoda
and,
quote.
and we're still learning, but it's been a good, so I would say just go for it.
And I think that what I heard from you is that has to start from the top down,
It
all the way down. So I love it. Okay, with that, I think we're out of time. Did we do okay, Zach?
You did great. I thought you were
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you guys. You've been fabulous.